Peace, y'all. Thank you for joining me for this quick lunchtime live. I've been talking about bringing the serial killer to you. Is she? Was she? You tell me. Because I'm leaning more towards no. So, we're going to go ahead and get this started. Peace to everyone who is joining me here right now. It's 1:21. It's lunchtime. Thank you for joining me. We here in Switzerland, where it's safe to play on the YouTube streets. You know what I'm saying? Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Let me go ahead and get this started, you guys. 1 second. Pull this in. Oh, by the way, while I'm pulling this up, I've made some incredible upgrades to this whole entire YouTube studio thing. I got cameras, mics. Well, I already had the mic, but so I'm really looking forward to bringing you guys more content, better quality, the whole nine. So, yeah, join me on this YouTube journey. Yes, Lahid. It's unfortunate. The most recent killing of another black person here at the hands of a cop. I have been intentionally avoiding it. I want to wait a couple days and see what else comes out and take it from there. My condolences to his family. Also here in Philly, I want to give my condolences to Miss Tamara and her daughter, who was brutally murdered last week. And the killer, which was actually related to that Amber Alert that I put out yesterday. They did find him. He is a suspect in the double homicide from last week. My condolences to that family and all who are being affected by it. There are a few people in my close circle that was affected by this as well. So condolences out to them. All right, now let's get this party started, shall we? Call me the oracle. I'm about to make this historical. These questions you ask me rhetorical. Like who do I be? I am the queen. I'm supreme. You didn't know? What do you mean? Look, they call me the oracle. I'm about to make this historical. These questions you ask me rhetorical. Like who do I be? Hey, you guys, before we get into the video, I just wanted to give a shout out to Black Mystic Company. Her link is in the description. If you're looking for candles is my thing. I love candles, okay? Love them. I have candles burning all the time in my house, not only on my altars, but just in general, even like your regular Glade candles. This company right here is based out of California. She has some beautiful smelling great candles ever, and I like to call them like the mystics type candles. She has candles for no bad vibes, money candles, love candles, and it's handmade. Shout out to the Black Girl Magic, right? So yeah, check out Black Mystic Company. She's on Instagram. I'm going to put the link in the description as well. And shout out to Black business owners. Peace and blessings, everybody. This is your girl, the Philly Bruja, coming to you on this beautiful day. Today's story is going to be about Clementine Barnabet. I came across this story, I want to say maybe 5 months ago. And of course, it caught my attention because the title was Voodoo Priestess Serial Killer, or something of that sort. So obviously, I said, this sounds like it's right up my lane. So, of course, I've been doing my research since then, and I've been able to look at some of the court documents and news clippings and things of that nature from when this went down. And I've been able to somewhat try to process it and break everything down that I found. That along with other stuff that has been written on her and her family, in the family, excuse me. Now, technically, Clementine is noted for being the first female, well, excuse me, black female serial killer in the United States. 35 dead. The span of the crimes is February 1911 through 1912 in the state of Louisiana, also in Texas. Um, Here's how the story goes. And I just also want to put it out there that even back then, people, religious beliefs, and things of that nature was persecuted. And even to this day, voodoo practitioners and those of us who practice under uh, Ifa tree, Lukumi, voodoo, the whole nine, 21 division, Palomiyambe, we've always experienced, I guess you can say, prejudice, not only from others, but even from our own. Now, while this has the title of the Voodoo Priestess, nothing in these documents that I saw linked this woman, well, you might as well say teenager at the time, nor her family. It linked them with no sorts of voodoo, witchcraft, whatever you want to call it. Nothing in those documents supported that. I believe that it was used just to sensationalize the articles at the time. We're talking 1911, 1912 here. So voodoo priestess murdering axe wielding killer, that's gonna sell a lot of newspapers. Just like how, it sells today, right? So let me just give you a breakdown. Early one afternoon in late January of 1911, a police officer in West Crawley, Louisiana, received an urgent phone call. Neighbors had feared something terrible had taken place at 605 Western Avenue. And indeed, when Officer Blue arrived at the house, he found the home, 3 occupants, which was a man, a woman, and a small boy, lying in a bed with their skulls split open. Their bed was drenched in blood, obviously, bloody footprints all over the floor, everywhere. But the doors were locked, you guys. So they indicated that the killer must have came through the window and murdered the whole entire family while they slept. There was a bucket of blood in one of the corners at the head of the bed. Just above the bashed in body stood a bloody axe. So the murderer or murderers left the weapon that they used in the killings. Okay. And also, the local newspaper called it the most brutal murder in the history of this section. But it was just one axe slayings that would it was just one of the axe slayings that would terrify parts of Louisiana and Texas in the early 1910s. But dig this. I know you guys heard of the Axeman. There was a several crimes throughout that area, Louisiana, Texas, I believe Arkansas too, that had a series of axe murderers. I mean, you even have the story of the Axeman, which is still famous today, that took place in Louisiana as well. I also would like to think that even possibly this had a connection to this story as well. And I'll get into why in a minute. So, as it stands, this particular crime will become connected to rumors of a deranged voodoo priestess in a cult called the Church of Sacrifice. Mind you, there has been no evidence that the church even existed, okay? Or the cult. None. So it was rumored around that time. They were saying that this Church of Sacrifice, they butchered their victims. It was part of their strange rites, quote unquote. But through suspicion initially focused on several men, probably that's where they should have kept it, the murderer would turn out to be an African American woman named Clementine Barnabet. Now, I'm going to just say murderer because she was convicted of these crimes. However, with everything that I've looked at, and I'm going to leave links to that as well so you can have a look for yourself. I just don't think that she did this at all. And I'll get into that as well. So they linked these murderers to an African American named Clementine Barnabet. And it's likely that she had no connection at all to voodoo. Now, eventually, she did confess to killing 35 people. But you got to realize what they went through to actually get this confession. Documents say that's exactly how many people she murdered is still unknown. I don't think that she had anything to do with these murders. Although the neighbors and the people who they got statements from, they kind of said the family was an outcast and downtrodden. You know, like the neighborhood miscreants, I guess you can say. They probably just put it on them, in times of when you got some kind of outlandish murder and things of that nature. The hunt is on to make somebody pay. Somebody got to pay. How many Black people have been convicted of that? Because somebody has to pay, right? All right. So at the start of the second decade of the 20th century, the murders blazed the path of terror through the cluster of towns along the Southern Pacific Railroad line. While sources argue about the first murder connected to the case, it may have been a woman named Edna Olepolis and her 3 children killed in Rain, Louisiana. Remember, I told you guys there was a series of axe murders that took place up along this whole, railroad line. And the majority, I'm going to say like 95% of these were Black families, okay? So they were saying that it was possible that she was linked to these killings as well. The next killing took place in late January 1911 when Walter Byers, his wife, and their son was hacked to death in Crawley, Louisiana. The police were somewhat used to crimes happening in their largely poor part of town, but the brutality of the murders, brains with an axe is what they call it. As one source put it, it surprised everybody. A little more than 4 weeks later, on February 25th, the murderer struck again, killing 4 members of the Andros family in Lafayette, Louisiana. By then, the police began to suspect that their crimes were so similar that they had to be connected. They had to be like the same monster. So a month later, in San Antonio, Texas, you have Alfred and Elizabeth Casway were murdered in a similar fashion along with their 3 children. This is more families being completely, murdered and taken out of here brutally at that. So they had a bunch of false leads. Police finally focused on Raymond Barnabet. This is Clementine father. He was a local petty criminal and a sharecropper from Lafayette who lived in the quote unquote the Black side of town. Okay. Give me 1 second, you guys. So they actually arrested Raymond on suspicions from his mistress, okay? His mistress, after they had a fight. She got mad and she was talking to a friend or whatever, and she suggested the possible connection to the murders, because why not, right? This is crazy. During his trial in October 1911, Raymond's children, which is Zephyrin and Clementine Barnabet, they testified against their father. And Clementine, at the time, she was a teenager. She told a very graphic story of how her father returned home one night with blood on his clothes as he threatened the family. Zephyrin confirmed the story, adding that their father bragged that he had killed the whole damn Andrews family. Both children said they feared for their life if their father was free.
But while Raymond sat in jail, another murder took place, another axe murder, y'all. On November 26, 1911, Norbert Randall and his wife, three children, and a nephew, they were all murdered in Lafayette in the same heinous fashion, but with a horrific addition. While the rest of the family was attacked with an axe, Norbert was shot in the head. Clearly, the killer is taking a different approach, right? It was clear a killer was still on the loose, so Lafayette Parish Sheriff, his name was Luis Lacosta, he was already suspicious of the Raymond children. He went ahead and arrested them both, okay? He arrested the children. Now, this gets a little bit even more crazy. Well, I'll get into that. His suspicions stemmed in part from the fact that they had bad reputations. I already said that around the town. During the Raymond's trial, their neighbors, the Stevens family, they made a statement describing them as filthy, shifty degenerates. And there was another detail that concerned LaCosta. When the police came to Barnabet residence to arrest Raymond, blood from the Andrews murder had been discovered on Clementine clothes. I just don't believe that. We talking about 1911 here. How would they even know? You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't know that. They didn't have DNA then. I mean, we had DNA, but they didn't have the tools to actually make a match and things of that nature. Anyway, so yeah, when the police came to the Barnabet residence to arrest Raymond, blood from the Andrews murder had been discovered on Clementine clothes. She testified during her trial that she had wiped the blood there, but the sheriff wasn't so sure. Indeed, when deputies arrested Clementine and searching the family's home, they found more damning evidence. I don't believe this for 1 second. At least not when it comes to the children. As the Daily the Picketing reported on November 28th, 1911, that there was a complete suit of women's clothes in her bedroom, saturated with blood and covered with human brains. How? How did they know it was human brains? Okay. Anyway, not only that, but the latch on the door was covered in blood. Zafran provided an alibi for the night of the murders, but Clementine had none and she was taken to jail. Even then, the murders didn't stop. But, hey, it doesn't matter because, they got somebody, right? All right. So this is where it gets a little bit more, really? Okay. So in January of 1912, three more families was murdered, y'all. In the third instance, when Felix Broussard and his wife and their children were killed in Lake Charles, Louisiana, the killer, or should I say like the killers, splayed the victims' hands apart with pieces of wood and left a handwritten message on the wall. Mind you, in the different reports that I have read, Clementine, nor her father, nor her brother was literate. Okay. So they're writing messages anywho, right? Either way, the letters spelled a spooky sentence. When he maketh the inquisition for blood, he forgetteth not to cry of the humble. This is from Psalms 9:12. It's in the King James Bible. The message was signed Human 5. This family wasn't literate at all. They didn't know how to read or write. So, okay. So then we have the daughter, and I believe the father was still in jail at this time too. The number in the signature led police to think a band of murderers was at work here, and it also lent the group a nickname picked up by the press, the Human 5 Gang. Again, even in 1912, the media was doing its thing and, creating fear amongst people. And like they do now, the newspaper had a field day. And then they seized on the idea that the murders was connected to a voodoo ritual. Complete bullshit. One of the first to take the angle was the El Paso Gazette, published a story on the Broussard murders titled "The Voodoo's Horrors Break Out Again." Yeah, so you know what? Hollywood and misconception and fear has been doing this thing forever here, right? Goodness gracious. The things people will go through when they fear something is just crazy. So they titled this story, "The Voodoo Horrors Break Out Again." The story suggests the crimes were connected to human sacrifice that took place as part of a voodoo ritual, and emphasized the idea of the number five as somehow having ritualistic relevance. 2 months ago, six members of the Wexford family perished at the hands of the fanatics, but one was an infant that had been only born the day before the tragedy. In all probability, had not been taken into consideration when the plans for human sacrifice was consummated. This is what the reporter, no facts, nothing behind it. This is what they're saying. Okay. So now comes the Broussard tragedy. With its five victims, thus completing a series of sacrifices of five separate families, which inevitably intended to have it had to involve, the five victims. These numbers are not accurate whatsoever. The victims count in any particular family typically range from four to six. So they were just putting that number five just out there because of whoever the murderer or murderers were that left the message. They put that on there. So this reporter was just running, to the people with misinformation and just trying to make everything fit, which they still do to this day. So the El Paso Gazette was one of the many to run with the whole voodoo angle. All of them down there was running with this whole voodoo angle. After this story hit the newsstand, several local papers also printed the possibility that the murders were connected to voodoo. Around the same time, rumors were swirling that Clementine was the leader of some kind of cult called the Church of Sacrifice. So this 17-year-old who couldn't read, couldn't write, her family was very, very, very poor. Um, According to the neighbors, they were shiftless, degenerates. She was a whole high priestess of a cult, Church of Sacrifice, which was supposedly, and this is how they pull in the church, which was supposedly led by one Reverend King Harris. He's a Pentecostal revival preacher who had a small congregation which was connected to the Christ Sanctified Holy Church. Police took Harrison for interrogations. It was just rumors, you guys.
I just wanted to interrupt this really quick to say, a good movie to check out, just to get an idea of Pentecostal churches from back then is that movie Spell. I did a review on that too. I think that they could have delved a little bit deeper into conjuring and root working, and I thought the plot storyline was a bit thin. However, that's how a lot of the Pentecostal churches was back then, and I believe today. I'm not down south, so I can just assume at this point. I didn't do any research on today's churches, but that'll give you a good idea of what the church was like ultimately. Of a religious involvement that ran rampant. But the Reverend had never heard of a church of sacrifice and he was like upset about it too. And he was very shaken that like his sermons could have inspired, something so brutal, right? So eventually what happens is eventually investigators, right? They would get at least some of their answers, they think, right? All of this time, you got to remember, Clementine was in jail, okay? And on April 5th, 1912, she had confessed. Mind you, she was under the most excruciating circumstances while she was in jail, okay? I'm pretty sure by that time she would have confessed to any fucking thing, okay? Kind of like how they do today. She made a full confession. She admitted to 17 murders. She claimed she had bought the voodoo charm, and she had a whole. This is what they're claiming here. This girl wasn't even literate, but anyway, she claimed she had bought a voodoo charm, which was meant to protect her while committing her crimes. The charm that they're speaking of, you guys, are the gree bags or mojo bag. There's nothing there's nothing evil about them. The same way some people carry, like, a rabbit's foot or a lucky coin. That's kind of what they are. So, all right. So she confessed to the 17 murders. She put a whole list of, well, they said that she put a whole story
She pulled the voodoo on this girl. She had no idea even what the fuck, Anyway, she said that she and her accomplices drew lots to see who would commit the murder. She also said that she disguised herself as a man to better lurk unnoticed at night. The Deli Picone noted that she declared she killed the children because she did not wish them left as orphans in the world. Her motives for the crime, however, was never made clear, possibly because she didn't do it, right? So one of the local newspapers, the Lafayette Advertiser, printed her full confession in the paper on April 5th, 1912. But it added at the end that Clementine's confession has been received with varying shades of belief, owing to the positive way she swore in the trial of her father and the misleading information she has given as to who her accomplices actually were. Indeed, it was difficult to keep up with Clementine's story straight. She couldn't even keep up with the story. She couldn't even keep up with the story, right? She had previously testified in court that her father was a dangerous man behind all these murders, but they kept happening, okay? She gave the names to her accomplice. When Sheriff LaCosta investigated them, they went nowhere. Nowhere. Several arrests was made, but the search for the rest of the Human Five gang was a dead end. It's because it wasn't one, okay? At the time, the district attorney, Howard E. Berner, he theorized that some of the murders were just copycat crimes, possibly, but he believed that Clementine was a moral pervert. How many people, even here on YouTube, are moral perverts? It's a whole bunch of you. Do I think you would be guilty of brutally murdering a whole entire family? Not so much. So, because she was a moral pervert, she
Skinny
was guilty of
legs.
everything she confessed to. Clementine had admitted to caressing the corpse after she killed them. Okay? Yeah, you heard that right. This young girl, I think she was like 17, 18 at the time, who went through unspeakable things while being locked up for murders that kept happening. And it's just getting more and more wild. Okay. She couldn't even keep up with the story. So now, apparently, right, she was caressing the bodies after she killed them. I mean, gosh, can we get more sensational than that? Right? So, the court records for Barnabet's trial was summarized and published by the Federal Writers Project in 1942. I do have the link to that. I'll put that in the description as well. And their account makes it plain that there was a great deal of public confusion regarding the details of the case at the time. For one thing, there probably was never a church of sacrifice. I'm inclined to believe that as well. As the papers had said, Reverend Harris had preached in Lafayette the night of Randall murders, but was otherwise uninvolved. According to the Federal Writers Project, a state of confusion existed in the public mind regarding the Sacrifice Church, the existence of which had never been established at all, you guys. The sanctified church and the frequent arrests of the latter were made. It is possible that the words sanctified and sanctified were confused with sacrifice after the voodoo cult rumors began that the newspaper and the media helped spread nonetheless, and that it was misinformation and it was just spread on from there. The whole story just became outlandish and just over the goddamn top, okay? But by then, the voodoo damage had already been done, y'all. They didn't blew this whole thing up. I'm surprised we don't even have a damn movie on this. Maybe we do. I don't know. The Lafayette population was willing enough to place the blame on this woman, claiming that she was a voodoo priestess committing the murders while leading a sacrificial sect. A 17, 18-year-old leading a whole cult, okay?
I mean, just in retrospect, just think about this shit, right? It took me 10 years. Hush, that's Coco, you guys. It took me like over 10 years just to gain the title, in my area of what I practice, okay? 10 years. That's not counting the years that came even before that. Okay, we're talking 2011, 2012. Now it's 2021. But, here it is, a 17-year-old child is being attached to that label, you know. And just attaching that whole sinister story to it is just like it's fucking ridiculous. And it's also, I mean, even today, people say those terrible things when it comes to traditional African religions. I mean, people right here, even on YouTube, you know, I've been accused of worshiping the devil and everything else, which is hilarious because I don't believe in the devil. But that's neither here nor there. This is actually almost over. I did pre record this for you guys. It's almost over, but just listen to the shit because it just gets even more crazier. I mean, it's some bullshit. But here, I'm gonna let this play out so y'all can finish hearing it. It's almost over, but I'm like, really? The same shit is going on today too. That's the crazy part about it.
We've had some strange cult leaders over the time. I don't think any of them was a child. It didn't help that Clementine had named a voodoo priest who had given her the invisibility charm to her. Okay, we got Joseph Thibodeau, right? Joseph Thibodeau, he was like your local root doctor, which was very common. We still have them today. Uh, I'm considered one. These people, these root workers, these root doctors exist, especially in poor neighborhoods and things of that nature, to help with different ailments, natural help from plants, herbs, things of that nature. That's also it's heavy in the African traditional beliefs, with certain superstitions that we still have to this day. So she said that he also gave her the idea for the crimes, but Thibodeau, he swore that it never happened, and that far from being a voodoo priest, he simply engaged in root based medicine. That's it. That's all. And also the
Just a slight caveat here. I meant to put this in the actual audio when I uploaded it. There is a huge difference between a voodoo priest, priestess, high priestess, all of those things. You can put that in one set. However, there is a distinct difference between root doctors and conjurers. Okay, that comes from hoodoo. It's a different element altogether. That's not a religion, by the way. So I forgot to put that in there. So I just wanted to make that distinction. Just because one is a high priestess, high priest, voodoo priest, whatever, that doesn't necessarily means that they're a root doctor or a conjurer, and vice versa. Okay, you do happen to have those who are that across the board. I am one as well. So hold on, let's keep going.
paper had to put in there that, even from the neighbors and, the people who knew him, he was definitely regarded as a peaceful man in his disposition, harmless in his intentions. And he was noted for the practice of conjuring warts away, and, things of that nature. A conjurer. That's something that was normal then, and it's still practiced today. So, despite investigators' suspicions regarding Clementine's confession, the stories about her continue to circulate. This is, media in full force now. They got this story. I mean, even Clementine, she couldn't even keep this shit straight by this time. Okay, so Brunner officially filed charges against her on April 14th, 1912. While she sat in jail, she confessed to a total of 35 murders. Mind you, the neighbors also stated that this family was mentally delayed. Like they weren't the fastest things running, okay, mentally. So while she sat in jail, she confessed to 35 murders, but she kept retelling her story. The story wasn't making any sense. She kept differing in the details that made it hard to know, like, what was the truth. Her defense attorney claimed she was insane, but she stood trial and was sentenced to life at Louisiana Penitentiary at the age of 19. She also attempted to escape on July 31st, 1913, but was caught the same day. Despite her escape attempt, she was considered a model prisoner. She didn't, however, serve very long. Let me tell you why. According to one of the brief reports about the prison, Clementine received a procedure. She was lobotomized, okay, which was supposed to restore her to her normal condition, which allowed her to be released on good behavior after serving 10 years. So you want to tell me that this woman killed 35 people, this child, this 19-year-old, at the time 17, uh, she killed 35 people or has some kind of hand in killing 35 people, and she only served 10 years. Stop it. So, what about Clementine's story is real, and what is the media fabricating? All of it. The evidence found in her room and the brain matter on her clothes suggests that Clementine did commit some of these murders, but perhaps not all of them. I don't think she did any of it. Dr. Jeff Anderson, I mean, for all we know, they were labor.
Skinny legs. They gave her a lobotomy. You know, Coco's always working. Yeah, they lobotomized her. Uh, there's much documents and documentation and videos on what they did to the mentally ill. It's terrible. It's horrible. And that whole entire medical field, they people are still affected by that today. It really didn't help anything. They just used people, as test dummies. It's crazy. It's crazy with what mentally ill people went through, and what they're still going through. It's crazy.
Laborers. They had animals farm. It could have been anything, to be quite honest. Dr. Jeff Anderson, a history professor at the University of Louisiana Monroe, he said that either Clementine or someone in her house performed the majority of these murders, but that her confessions was just so contradictory. I don't think he said that, I don't think, this is quote, I don't think that she totally committed all the murders that she said she did. The questions of Barnabet's accomplices and whether or not they were part of some kind of voodoo cult, nobody ever had any answers for that, not even her. Okay. I really feel like at the end of the day, if her race or her class had been different, we would probably get more of the truth. But because they were poor, they were black, illiterate, why not? And what's crazy is that while she sat in jail all of that time, more murders were being committed the same exact way, same MO, everything. I mean, it was scandalized in the press. It just stirred up a whole bunch of shit. I mean, people was in a state of panic. Really. I mean, because if you think about it, Civil War wasn't, that long ago. Everything about Clementine Barnabet represent a collision, even a perversion. Again, even then, they were, invoking trauma porn onto people. And it worked. I mean, it worked then and it works now, unfortunately. I mean, all of it, all together. Even in the eyes of the white Louisianas, from her mingled Creole French to her mingled beliefs with with the voodoo, and it's. I mean, with voodoo, the symbolism against Catholicism. They've used that, to hide voodoo since the beginning, since they came. Um, we've used it to, well, they use it to hide their actual beliefs. It's still done to this day. I have a lot of Catholics in my family, well, fake Catholics, who actually practice Santeria uh, while being Catholics. Now, despite being behind bars at the time of the Broussard family murders, Clementine Barnabet, she confessed to having a hand in the killings. Clementine, whose demeanor and behavior was deemed as odd by the investigators and newspapers alike, also claimed that she was responsible for more murders than the public knew about. Clementine ultimately confessed to her involvement in the murders of some 35 people between 1911 and 1912. 17 of these victims were reportedly murdered by Clementine herself. I think that was complete bullshit. I'm going to put all the links in the description. You can take a look for yourself. I think that this confession was coerced in every way possible. After her confession, Clementine was examined by several doctors, most of them who deduced that she was perfectly sane. Stop it. Due to the severity of her crimes, Clementine was sent to the infamous Angola State Penitentiary near Louisiana state capital of Baton Rouge on July 31st, 1913. Clementine, she did try to escape. I did touch on that earlier, but she was captured the same day. And then, for whatever reason, they just said, you know, don't worry about it. It's okay, you know. And in 1918, Clementine was given the job of cane cutter. This meant that Clementine was allowed to work outside of the minimal observation, right? So this woman, who was a child at the time, killed 35 people, allegedly. Well, no, they said that she did kill 35 people. Um, they gave her a work, duty, with minimum observation. So 5 years later, on Saturday, August 20th, 1923, Clementine Barnabet was allowed to leave Angola due to years of good behavior. Mind you, this was after she was lobotomized, okay? The story of Clementine Barnabet, I mean, it remained a mystery and just until a few years ago. So people wanted to know, like, whatever happened to her, because she just, got out and that was that. Well, according to an internet user by the name of Voodoo Gal, spelled VOODOOGALLL. She visited her 103-year-old grandmother in 1985. During that visit, the pair was joined by another woman who told them all the story about a forgotten string of voodoo murders, quote unquote. That same year, after the mysterious storyteller died, Voodoo Girl and other attendees at the funeral noticed that a youthful picture of the woman matched the newspaper photographs of the serial killer, Clementine Barnabet. So, guys, what do you think about this? Do you think she had any participation in any of this? I personally don't. With all the documents and things of that nature that I found, the newspaper clippings and things of that nature, there were brutal murders that were going on. I mean, most famously, you have the Axeman, you know, and it was happening in that entire area for quite some time. These murders kept going while this young lady was incarcerated. I feel like at the time, just like, now, why not blame it on poor, downtrodden people who were illiterate? And some said, that the family as a whole was mentally challenged, you know. And then, lock her up. She got life. Then they're like, no, never mind. We're not going to give you life. She tried to escape. They caught her. And they're like, forget about that. Don't worry about that. It never happened. We got arrested the same day. And, just 5 years later, they give her work duty. They lobotomize her, give her work duty. And then 10 years go by. And they're like, okay, all is forgiven. Go ahead. Go live your life. What the fuck? How does that happen? This is America, I guess, right? Same injustice that, we experience today, it was experienced then. I feel that at the time, people just needed someone to blame. Whether or not her father, because I didn't really look into too much of his background. Locals said he was a drunk. The kids said they were terrified of him. Clementine, was one of his children. I don't know if he had anything to do with any murders, maybe one, two, or what. I don't know because I didn't really look into his background. But looking at all the documents that was presented and I was able to locate and find, I really think that Clementine was just an scapegoat, and she was arrested and held at trial because, like, anytime you see any kind of murders, especially with such brutality, you want someone to pay. But at what cost? Because the murders kept happening, you know? So that's just something for you to think about. I hope you enjoyed the story of Clementine. I do not think she had anything to do with voodoo. I don't even think she had anything to do with the murders. But because of her situation, she was the scapegoat. So yeah, that's that. You guys, you have a beautiful day. Thank you for joining me today. As always, peace and blessings.
So I just wanted to say thank you for joining me this afternoon, evening, whatever time it is where you are, for the story of Clementine. It's a sad story. It's unfortunate, all the way around. One moment, please. I love you. I'll see you later. Bye. One second, you guys. Okay, so just really quickly, I was saying goodbye to my husband. Chunk has now joined us. Wahid, I wanted to talk about really quick what you had said earlier about your family talking about you cursed them and cursed that other relative. A lot of times in those situations, the crazy thing is people do this to themselves. They wind up cursing themselves. I actually knew someone. She was actually elderly my whole life. So that just lets you know what I'm saying? She was just the meanest thing walking. Like she hated everybody. She was mean to everybody, especially dark skinned people, which is crazy because she was dark skinned, right? When I tell you, now I've had tons of family that come home on hospice. They usually last a couple days to a couple months, and they transcend. This woman, they let her come home with hospice, right? She is the longest living person I know to this date who actually lived on hospice care for like a year or two, okay? And to this day, I swear it was because like God didn't want her and neither did the devil. So she just stayed in limbo, okay? To this day, you can't tell me that's why she was here for so damn long and in that condition for so long. I've never seen anything like it, even to this day. Most people, they kind of curse themselves, doing to others what you want done to you. You know what I'm saying? All of that energy that you put out there, it comes back to you, whether it's good or bad. You're gonna get it back. You know what I'm saying? So, that's saying he's dying soon. Yeah, you know how rare it is for someone to actually, hex someone and it actually hit. It's very rare. I mean, it can be done, but it's rare. And for the people who don't believe in this shit, who don't believe in anything like that, you're the best ones to get because you have no protection. You have nothing that's guiding you. But just to pull this thing all into full circle, this is just an unfortunate story. This just goes back to what we go through or what we have been through and what we're going through in America, and I'm sure across, the world as melanated people. I don't think that this woman, this child at the time, was capable of doing those things. Not only that, they couldn't read or write. So how could they leave those messages, right? And so you said free some. That works. Yeah, in a way. So yeah, I think that this was unfortunate. No, she was not a voodoo high priestess. There was no connection to voodoo whatsoever. It was just, a hoodoo root worker. He got blamed for some shit. You know what I'm saying? But that was about it. And 10 years later, she just moseyed on out. And according to the internet, her granddaughter posted about her. She was like 100 and something years old when she passed away. So, yeah, I want to say that it would be nice to see a movie on something like this, and maybe they can get into more detail and researching about it, and her life after she left, which I'm sure was very private. I mean, goodness, yes, I'm sure she transcended in peace. Good God, I can't even believe what she had to go through. Being 17 years old, scared. She confessed to all kinds of shit. It just wasn't cool. That wasn't cool. But this is America. Here we go. Y'all have a good day, all right? Have a beautiful, beautiful day. And enjoy the rest of your week. I'll be coming. They should scare you. Some of your biggest root workers and conjurers are sitting on the first pew. When they say they're going to lay hands, they ain't just talking about to Jesus Christ, okay? Anyway, y'all, I'm gonna try to bring y'all another video at some point this week, or I hit live and just bust it up with y'all again. This is Switzerland, Switzerland for the YouTube streets. It's safe. All right, y'all, toodles.